to share with you is a new recipe for a teriyaki pork roast that you can cook in your crock pot. The flavors are phenomenal and I can't wait to share this with you. So let's go ahead and get started. So here I went ahead and got a 4-pound pork roast, and we are going to take it out of the package. We're going to stick it in this oblong baking dish for the moment, because the first thing we're going to do is coat it with brown sugar. But before I get started with the recipe, let me just backtrack a little bit and show you what I've done with my Ziploc bag, because this is where it's going to go. I have labeled it on the top as far as the date, 5/10/2020. I put on there how it's a teriyaki pork steak. I've told myself exactly how to cook it in the crock pot on low for 6 hours. Then I'm going to take the roast out, let it rest for a few minutes. And in the recipe below that we'll post for you, it mentions how we would use cornstarch along with water, mix that up, and then you're going to add that to the juices in the crock pot once you take the roast out to rest for a few minutes, just to get that cooked in for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and it'll thicken the juices. Then you can just take those juices and pour it on top of your roast right before you're going to serve it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started now with the brown sugar. So again, one of my gadgets that I've shown you in the past, for those that are just joining us for the first time, I love these snappy lid containers for my sugars and my flour. And if you look inside, you're going to see I do have a marshmallow in there, although he's hiding. But I keep a marshmallow in my brown sugar. It does keep it nice and fluffy. And again, for a container this size, I have 3 to 4 marshmallows that I put in the container in different spots, just to keep it nice and moist and fluffy. All right, so the recipe calls for 1 cup of brown sugar, and what we're going to do is rub the whole pork roast with this brown sugar. So I'm just going to coat it nice. And again, this is going to give it that caramelization that you kind of want, especially as it's in your crock pot. And you just kind of want to rub it really good all over it. And there's a little layer of fat on the bottom, which is good because that's going to add to your moisture and keep it from drying out on you. So I think our roast is pretty well coated at this point. If anything does fall off, what I will do is just add it into the baggie once I put the roast inside. Now that I've opened my baggie that I have pre-labeled, we're going to go ahead and insert the pork roast. And because this is a big pork roast, we are not using the baggie holder because it's not going to work. So we are just going to try to set this thing in here with all this sugar yumminess. And again, like I said, I'm going to try to just take the leftover brown sugar that I had in my baking dish, and I am going to put this back on my roast, because we want all that brown sugar to stay there, to stay coated on there, so that when we cook it in the crock pot, it'll get that caramelized flavor. And this is what's going to add to that teriyaki flavored pork roast. That is going to be so yummy. And then I would take a nice clean cloth, and then just make sure you go around the edges to remove any leftover sugar that might have just been on the edge there. All right, so since I'm done with that, let me go ahead and remove my gloves so that we can move on to the rest of the items and ingredients that need to go inside that baggie. So the next thing we're going to add is garlic. So here is another one of my gadgets that I love in my house. It is by Pantry Chef, and the reason I love it so much, for the sake of time, I went ahead and did most of my garlic. However, I left one more piece in here to show you how it's done. You simply open it, you put it in the inside, push it down, and then squeeze tightly. And what's nice is this attachment that actually comes with the garlic press. As you can see, the edge here is nice and straight across. That's what I use to actually scrape off the rest of the garlic that's left over, because who doesn't want all the garlic to go into your recipe, right? So I scoop that off, and then what's nice, if you look in the inside, you still see some of the garlic. Well, again, the attachment also has teeth. So if you take the teeth, it will fit very snugly underneath, and you see how it pushed up the insides? So now that it's pushed up, all I have to do is take the little arm of the attachment and just scoop it. As you can see, I can scoop it in one quick slide right into my bowl. So I make sure that I don't waste any of the garlic, but I actually get all of it. Again, this is Pantry Chef. It's one of my favorite gadgets that I use in the kitchen for pressing garlic. However, there is a newer one that we have out. If you go back to one of our previous videos that we put out on Ask Clem Today, it's under the Best Kitchen Gadgets, Part 1, and you'll see it in that particular video. The new one is listed, and you can see if maybe that would work better for you. It's your choice. Now going back to our recipe, another gadget that I like to use is a finger spatula. You've seen me use this before, but for those of you that might be joining us for the first time, I love this little thing because it's not as big as a normal spatula, but it's just enough to get the little bits that are left over out without making a mess and making sure we get it all. So I'm going to use it here in order to scoop all the rest of my garlic into my baggie with the roast. Okay, so our next ingredient is our soy sauce and our apple juice. And we need 1/2 cup of each one. So let's go ahead and open our apple juice. And again, this can be any particular brand of apple juice. I just happen to be using the Mott's apple juice, but it really doesn't matter what type apple juice you use, but I prefer the one that says 100% juice and there's no added sugar to it, especially since we put sugar on our roast. Okay, and so we're just going to add 1/2 cup in our roast. So now we're going to add the soy sauce. The soy sauce I like to use is by Bragg, that's the brand name, and it is a soy sauce alternative. In some of my other recipes, I've shared this tip with you. So for those of you that are new and just seeing this video with us for the first time, I'll quickly just let you know, this is a nice alternative. It's something that tastes very similar to soy sauce. It does have a little bit of soy in it, but it's very minute because the majority of it is amino acids. So it is healthier for you as well. In this recipe, it calls for 1/2 cup. So we've added our soy sauce now. Oh man, if you could be on my side and smell this, it smells really good. And we are just going to add a teaspoon of black pepper. And there we have it, guys. That's your recipe. The only things that you would add additionally to this, as I mentioned earlier, is that once the pork roast is done cooking, you're gonna take the pork roast out of the crock pot, let it rest for about 15 minutes. But during that 15 minutes, you're gonna take 2 tablespoons of the cornstarch, which I talked to you about earlier, with some water, stir it in with the juices, mix it well, let it heat for just a few minutes, and then you'll have a nice juice to pour on top of your roast when you serve it on the table. Serve it with any sides that you and your family would like, and I hope you enjoy it. Have a good day. So here's the finished product from the pork roast teriyaki style that we made in the crock pot. So the final step is you take your pork out of the crock pot, set it on a platter to rest for a few minutes, and then in the meantime, take 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and add it to the juice. Mix it well so that it doesn't clump, but that it actually thickens your juice. As you see on my platter, what I did is I pulled my pork pieces apart a little bit, and then I added my juice on the top. I'm gonna actually serve this along with a tossed salad and butter Parmesan veggie noodles. So we are looking forward to eating, and I hope you look forward to eating your pork roast when you make it yourselves too.